Ever get that feeling like, your body's just not quite firing on all cylinders? Maybe things feel a bit sluggish inside.
Oh, absolutely. We've all had those days, I think.
Well, today we're going to dive deep into something that might just help tune things up a bit. It's called Myo plus D-Chiro-inositol, and it's from Biotics Research.
That's right. And we're going to unpack the science behind inositol. It's often called vitamin B8, but it's actually more of a pseudo-vitamin, technically speaking.
Pseudovitamin.
And
Okay.
we'll focus on two really important forms. Myo-inositol, people call it MI, and D-Chiro-inositol, or DCI.
Got it. MI and DCI. So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear then. We want to understand what this specific biotics research product, Myo plus D-Chiro-inositol, is actually designed for.
And the science behind why it's designed that way, what makes it tick.
Exactly. So, okay, let's start broad. What does inositol generally do in the body based on what we've read?
Well, the sources point to quite a few key roles. First off, it helps with fat metabolism, how our body processes fats. Pretty crucial.
Okay, fat metabolism makes sense.
And it also assists in, healthy cell production. The sources mention bone marrow, the gut lining, intestines, and even the membranes in our eyes.
Wow, eyes too.
Yeah, ocular membranes. And it helps move fats around the body like a transport system. Plus, it's important for how our nerves talk to each other, neural communication.
Neural communication. Okay, so brain function is involved. And wasn't there something else? Vascular health and hair.
You got it. Supports vascular health, healthy blood vessels, which is obviously vital. And yes, important in hair growth is mentioned too.
Yeah.
It's found pretty much everywhere. But the sources highlight really high levels in some key spots: the brain, the heart, and, interestingly, the lens of the eye.
Brain, heart, eyes. Seems like a really important molecule then. Okay, let's zoom in on myo-inositol, the MI part. You said it's the most common one.
It is. It's the most prominent form you find.
Hmm.
Think of it as the main player. It's a precursor for making these things called inositol lipids.
Inositol lipids, what do they do?
They're like messengers between cells. And MI also acts as an osmolyte.
An osmolyte.
Yeah, it helps regulate fluid balance inside cells, kind of keeps things stable pressure-wise, a bit like a tiny water balance manager for the cell.
A cellular water balance manager. I like that. So communication, balance. And then the big one, insulin sensitivity. That sounds really significant.
It really is. MI has these insulin sensitizing capabilities. Basically, it helps your cells respond better to insulin.
So they take up glucose properly?
Exactly. When you're insulin sensitive, your cells listen to insulin signal to grab glucose from your blood. The sources also say MI is involved in tons of other cell functions, and if its metabolism goes a bit wrong, well, that's linked to insulin resistance and related problems.
Okay, so getting MI right seems key for managing blood sugar and metabolism.
Very much so.
Now, what about its partner in this biotics research formula? D-Chiro-inositol DCI. How does it fit in?
DCI also has those insulin sensitizing effects, which is why they're often paired. But DCI has a slightly more specialized role. It's known as an important secondary messenger for insulin signaling.
Secondary messenger, like it carries the signal inside the cell?
Precisely. If insulin is knocking on the cell's door, DCI is one of the key players inside that relays the message, telling the cell, okay, time to let that glucose in.
Ah, okay. So they work together, both helping with insulin response, but maybe at slightly different steps in the process.
That seems to be the idea.
And our info also mentioned that both MI and DCI have been shown to help with androgen levels, improve insulin action generally, and even support healthy systolic blood pressure. That's quite a range.
It is. And digging into DCI specifically, it helps speed up certain steps in glucose metabolism, dephosphorylation of enzymes like glycogen synthase and pyruvate dehydrogenase.
Whoa, okay, breaking down the jargon there. Those enzymes are important for using and storing glucose.
Yeah, they're like key control points. So DCI helps those processes run more efficiently. And here's something else fascinating. The sources link lower DCI excretion in urine to decreased insulin sensitivity.
Really? So how your body gets rid of DCI tells you something about how sensitive you are to insulin.
It seems to be an indicator, yes, kind of a feedback clue from the body.
That's wild. Okay, this brings us squarely to the ratio in this product. Myo plus D-Chiro-inositol from Biotics Research uses a 40-to-1 ratio. Why that specific number?
Well, the information we looked at really emphasizes this 40.1 ratio. It's the ratio typically found in our blood plasma, and research suggests it's likely the most clinically effective balance.
So it mirrors our natural physiology.
Essentially, yes. Studies in animals and humans hint at this. For example, they've observed that in tissues where diabetic complications often show up, kidneys, nerves, retina, lens, there's often less inositol overall and a buildup of sorbitol.
Okay, but connect that back to the ratio for me. How does that link?
Right, so the sources also describe this unusual pattern in type 2 diabetes, where people tend to pee out more MI but less DCI. This shifts the ratio, leading to a lower DCI to MI ratio in their urine.
More MI out, less DCI out.
Exactly. And this abnormal pattern is seen specifically in tissues that should be responding to insulin. It suggests the balance between MI and DCI gets thrown off when insulin regulation isn't working well.
So it's not just having enough, it's having them in the right proportion, like a team that needs the right number of players in each position.
That's a good way to put it. It's about that physiological balance.
The source material also touched on glucose disposal rate, didn't it, in type 2 diabetes?
It did. It mentioned the overall rate the body gets rid of glucose.
Yeah.
The GDR, and particularly the non-oxidative part of that, is often lower in people with type 2 diabetes.
Non-oxidative, meaning storing it rather than burning it immediately.
Sort of, yeah. It's one pathway for glucose use. And if that pathway is less efficient, it might contribute to the overall difficulty in managing blood sugar levels.
Okay, it's all starting to weave together. And then there was PCOS polycystic ovary syndrome. That often involves insulin issues too, right?
Absolutely, there's a strong link. And the info highlights something really interesting there. Women with PCOS were found to clear DCI out of their bodies much faster than women without it.
They get rid of it faster.
Significantly faster, yeah. And crucially, this faster clearance was inversely correlated with insulin sensitivity, meaning the faster they cleared DCI, the less insulin sensitive they tended to be.
Wow. So losing DCI quickly seems linked to poorer insulin response in that context.
It appears so. But the flip side was that when these women were given DCI supplements, it actually helped improve their glucose disposal and insulin action.
Okay, so supplementing helped restore some balance or function there. This really reinforces how important that MI and DCI relationship is, especially that ratio.
It definitely seems that way based on the evidence presented. Which brings us back to the 40.1 ratio being potentially quite important.
Right, and there was that international consensus conference mentioned too, wasn't there, in 2013?
Yes. The International Consensus Conference on MI and DCI in obstetrics and gynecology, they actually recommended supplementing in that 40.1 ratio, basing it on these tissue-specific ratios we've been talking about.
So formal recommendation from experts in the field?
And they concluded that inositol supplementation, particularly with this balanced approach, could have positive effects across various areas in OBGYN.
Fascinating. Okay, let's shift back to the Biotics Research product itself. You mentioned the source of the inositol is different.
Yes, and this is a practical point for many. A lot of commercial inositol in the U.S. comes from corn, but Biotics Research sources theirs from rice.
From rice, so that means?
It means it's naturally gluten-free, which is a big plus for anyone with celiac disease or gluten sensitivity.
Definitely good to know. And the product itself, is it easy to take? What's it like?
It comes as a powder. The description says it has a pleasant, kind of semi-sweet taste. And importantly, it disperses readily in water, so it should be easy to mix and drink.
Okay, simple enough. And how much do you get?
Each serving is about 1.5 teaspoons, which gives you 5 grams total of the inositols. And crucially, that 5 grams is delivered in that 40-to-1 Myo to D-Chiro ratio.
5 grams in the 40.1 ratio per serving. And how many servings in a container?
The container is 8 ounces, and it provides about 45 servings.
So a decent amount, and I assume the label makes all this clear.
Absolutely. The supplement facts panel lays it out. Serving size 5G, 45 servings per container, and that 5G blend of Myo-inositol and D-Chiro-inositol 40.1.
And the other ingredients, just to be thorough.
It lists inositol from rice and chiro-inositol from carob seed, and it explicitly states it's gluten and dairy-free.
Carob seed for the DCI. Interesting. Okay, so wrapping this all up then. Based on everything we've dug into from our sources, this Myo plus D-Chiro-inositol product from Biotics Research is really quite specifically formulated.
Very specifically. It's providing these 2 key inositol forms, MI and DCI, in that 40.1 ratio that reflects what's found in our plasma and what research suggests might be most beneficial for supporting metabolic processes.
Especially relating to insulin sensitivity and glucose handling.
Exactly. The sources really highlight how MI and DCI work, sometimes together, sometimes with distinct roles in that whole insulin signaling pathway and glucose metabolism picture, and that the balance between them seems critical.
So for anyone listening who finds this deep dive intriguing, maybe you're thinking, could this fit with my health goals? What's the key takeaway message?
Well, as always, while understanding the science is great, the next step is crucial. Talk to your healthcare professional.
Definitely. They know your individual health picture, your needs, any other medications or conditions.
Right. They can give you personalized advice on whether a supplement like this from Biotics Research makes sense for you. Self-treating based just on information isn't the way to go.
Couldn't agree more. Always work with a professional.
Absolutely.
So let's leave everyone with a final thought to chew on. Considering how absolutely fundamental these processes are, insulin sensitivity, glucose metabolism, how they underpin so much of our energy and overall health, what positive ripples might occur if you proactively support them in the right way?
It's a powerful question. Thinking about supporting those foundational systems. Definitely food for thought.